totally forgot to film myself, but oh my gosh, I think I'm pregnant, Micah.
This was just 365 days ago. We were on the trip of a lifetime and had just traveled across the country in our self-built camper van. Things were going great. And little did we know that our whole life was about to change.
I see a line. I'm shaking. Oh my god. It's so faint, but it's there. I feel like I'm going crazy because you can't see it, but I definitely see it. I definitely see you're not here. You just left 2 hours ago. Oh my gosh. It's getting darker. I don't know what to do.
You're coming back tomorrow morning, and I prepared a little gift for you to announce it, to surprise you. But I really wanted to take this digital test and see the words pregnant and put that in the gift. So let me go pee on it. Okay, it's calculating. Haven't told anyone. I really wanted you to be the first one to know, and that's, oh my gosh, it's all. Why does that hit different? I'm gonna put this in the box for you, and I will tell you tomorrow. Can't wait.
No! Are you serious? What? Oh my god! Whoa! You are shaking. I'm gonna be a dad? I was gonna say, you're glowing.
I think you might be coming tonight or tomorrow. I think that you might be a procrastinator like your dad, and you're 12 days overdue now, and I'm just ready to meet you, and I'm excited. I am really excited to be your mother. You're gonna make me cry. You're putting me on the spot, and now I have all these hormones going in me. I knew I always wanted to be a mother, and it took me a long time to decide to be ready to be a mother, but now I'm more than ready to meet you. And you're making me wait so long. It's really hard. I hope that you're coming tonight, or that it starts tonight and I'll meet you tomorrow. And I hope that you're doing well in there. I feel you move all the time. And I'm speaking to you in English, and I think I'm going to be speaking to you in French, so this is going to be weird. Je t'aime, j'ai hâte de te rencontrer.
Well, I am your father, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you as well. Steph and I, your mom and I, we do think it's tonight, and if it is, then it's going to be a great night. And if you don't know the story, we've had a lot to get ready up to this moment, so we're very grateful that we got a lot of things done. But yeah, we're just ready to meet you. So. He knows Byron. Byron, come here.
This is Byron. Sit. Byron, look. Right there. Look.
So, we love you. Byron wants to say something.
Byron can't wait to meet you.
Yeah.
He's going to be a good dog to you. Hello. I don't know how to start this. So we had a baby.
Yeah.
And his name is Ezra James. He's currently in my arms trying to fall asleep. You might hear him a little bit.
So we recently had a home birth, and we wanted to share our story, Steph's experience, how it went, and hopefully to be able to help somebody who has questions. If you're considering having birth at home, then maybe this can be a resource to you. If you've already decided on having a home birth, then hopefully this can encourage you or give you an idea of what to expect.
I feel like in our day and age, there's like this stigma around home birth that it can be scary or dangerous. So I wanted to share our positive experience with you guys. Even though it was not easy, I'm very happy that I had a home birth. So let's get into the story. I'm just someone that really likes to do things more naturally. And it's always been something that I've wanted to do, to be able to give birth in my own house
and just have like a core group of people that I knew that were there, that were going to support me. The midwives, you really get to know them. The appointments are like an hour long. I could text them if I had any questions. So I just really felt safe around them.
I had never known anybody that had ever given birth at home, so it was a new concept to me. I was a little bit apprehensive because I just didn't know what to expect. But having our first meeting with the midwives really reassured me. They are medically trained, they're professionals. And the thing that I noticed that was a lot different than maybe the hospital would be, they give extra attention to the mother and her experience. Not to say that there's any less attention on the birth, but there's a lot of care in the mother and preparing her for the day.
I read a book called A Guide to Childbirth by Ina May. I would really suggest really anyone that's pregnant to read that book, but especially if you want to have a home birth or a birth with midwives, it's just such a good book and it really prepares you for childbirth. So go get that book. I'll link it below. So how it worked was that every month I would see the midwives for an hour-long appointment. And then at the last, I think starting 36 weeks, you see them every single week. And then I went 2 weeks overdue. So during those 2 weeks, I would see them twice a week just to make sure that the baby was okay and everything. My due date was August 11th. And I did not want to give birth before then because we had so much to do to prepare for the baby and I just wasn't ready. So I predicted that I was going to give birth on August 19th. And you?
I guessed the 15th
Yeah,
of
August 15th, yeah. And then all my family like guessed like between those dates, you know? So those dates came and passed and I still didn't have a baby. And at that time I was huge. I was super uncomfortable. I was literally peeing every like 15 minutes. It was crazy. So all I wanted was to get the baby out of me. So I did everything to try to kickstart labor naturally. I did the miles circuit, if you know what that is, took walks, I ate dates. And so at 41 weeks plus 5 days, I got a membrane sweep because I knew that that could really kickstart things. And I was so far along that I was like, it's gonna work. So I went and I was only 2 centimeters dilated, which was a little discouraging. I know it doesn't mean much because you can go from like 2 to 10 in like a couple hours. But for me, I thought I was gonna be at least at a 3. And then that evening I started to pump because I wanted to collect some colostrum, and also pumping can kickstart labor. So I was doing that to just see if it was gonna do anything. And I did feel some lower back pains, but nothing crazy. And when I stopped pumping, it just stopped. That night we went to bed. I woke up and I didn't start labor and I was discouraged. I was like, what is happening? And so I ate breakfast. I pumped again. And then I started having those lower back pains again. I remember looking at Micah and being like, I think I just had a contraction. And so Micah was like, I'm gonna go cut the grass. It was like 10 a.m., 10:15 a.m. at that point. I texted my mom just saying like, please pray that I start labor today. And then literally 15 minutes later, that's when I was like, oh, this is actually contractions, because they were very regular. They were like every 3 to 4 minutes apart and they were 30 seconds long. And they really just felt like menstrual cramps. Nothing like crazy intense, but I just felt them and I was like, this is contractions, and I knew it. So I went to see Micah while he was cutting the grass and I was like, I think I'm in labor.
It's August 24th. I was due August 11th. So tomorrow I'm 42 weeks, but I feel like I'm starting like real contractions. I've had a lot of Braxton Hicks, which are not painful, but your stomach gets hurt. But now it's like my lower back hurts and like it's like menstrual cramps a little bit. So I texted my doula and she said, go take a bath for 20 minutes and see if it continues. And if it continues, it's probably real labor. So I'm gonna go. It's 11:16 in the morning, which is good because I'll have energy. But yeah, anyways, Micah's cutting the grass.
Just out here mowing the lawn on my electric mower. Exciting. All right, bye.
So I took a bath, but it did not slow down. And so I was like, okay, this is it. And at that time, they were just like menstrual cramps, so I was able to like talk through them. I had to stop moving when I had a contraction, but it was not like crazy intense. I was cleaning the house a little bit. Micah went into this cleaning phase.
When I came inside, to keep me from freaking out, I just started cleaning the house, preparing everything that I could. I made lunch for Steph. I was like, I need to get her some food before we get to a point where she can't eat. I just wanted to get ready.
Yeah. My doula arrived at 2:45 p.m. And when she arrived, I was feeling all my contractions in my lower back, which is not ideal. It's very painful. So she was like, maybe like the baby's not in a good position. You can try like going up and down stairs and stuff like that. And I was able to do that at that point. The contractions were getting closer and closer together, but they were still short. They were like 30 seconds long, but they never really got longer. Like that's just how my contractions were at the beginning. I remember asking Micah and my doula, like, what time do you think I'm gonna give birth? And in my head, I thought 7 p.m., which is delusional. They were like, we don't want to answer that question because it might discourage you.
Yeah. I decided not to answer this.
Which is good because I think if you would have said like 1 a.m., I would have been like, what? But spoiler alert, I gave birth way after 1 a.m. My midwife arrived at 5 p.m. And when she arrived, I was laying on the bed. And I just remember like looking at her, and this is when it started getting more intense. Like the contractions were really getting stronger. And I started crying because I think it's the realization of it all that hit me when she came. This is going to be really intense. And so she checked me, and I was only 4 centimeters dilated. And she told me I usually don't tell people because I don't want them to get discouraged. So I actually didn't know the whole time, which I think was a good thing because 4 centimeters, I would have been like, what? In my head, I was like, I'm at a 7 or something, but no. Micah got the pool ready. We put the pool in the nursery. So I went into the pool, which was very relaxing, but it kind of was not really working for me because it was kind of slowing down his heartbeat, and I would get like
his was speeding up.
Oh yeah, it was speeding up his heartbeat, not slowing it down. But I would stay in the pool and I would like go out and then go back in because I really wanted to give birth in the pool. Like that was my goal.
My role in this was to be the support for Steph. One way of doing that was pressure points. And we found that the hip squeeze was the most effective for her. And if you're planning on doing this, I would recommend husbands to, when you're starting at the beginning of labor, to not give your full force because you're gonna need your strength later. But yeah, I was there every single time, whether she was in the pool or outside of the pool, pressing on her hips. And if I couldn't get a good position, then I was doing other pressure points on her hands, shoulders, legs.
Micah tried to do hip squeeze on me, but like way before I was in labor, like weeks before, just to know like what to do. And it's very painful.
I barely did it.
Yeah.
Barely.
But during labor, he was like going full force on my hips, and it just kind of helps like redirect pain in another area of your body. So your brain is not just focusing on like the contractions, but there's also like pain on your hips. But yeah, Micah got really, really tired. Every time a contraction was coming, I would just say Micah's name. I was just like, Micah. And then he would come and do the hip squeeze. That's when I really started getting like super quiet. There was no more laughing, no more talking between contractions. You have to mentally be in control while a contraction is coming because it's easy to just be like, this is so painful and get overwhelmed. And when the contractions were getting more and more and more intense, I heard somewhere someone saying like, a peak of a contraction is only like 30 seconds and you can do anything for that amount of time. So my trick was I figured out that 4 deep breaths was like the peak of my contraction, and after 4 breaths it would like go down because contractions are like waves, you know, but it's like 4 long breaths, you know, you're like ooh, like doing those grunt noise. And it really helped me mentally to focus on something but also know like it's gonna be over. You can't think about all the other contractions you're gonna get after. You just have to focus on that one contraction during that time. So at 9:35, I got checked again, and I was at a 7 centimeter at that point, and she still didn't tell me, but she did say a comment like, oh, you're getting close. And so Micah interpreted that as I'm probably going to give birth in the next couple hours.
In the next few hours, we'll be ready to deliver.
Yeah. Another thing is that we are in Quebec, so the midwives are speaking French. And so Micah, maybe it got lost in translation.
I think she said that part in English, though.
I don't know. So at 12:10 p.m., that's when I went back in the pool, and his heartbeat was going up, and I was pretty much dehydrated. And so they suggested an IV. I went back on the bed so they could give me the IV, and it did help me to get rehydrated. I was drinking water, but it was just like the tiniest sips ever.
Very little bit.
So it was just not enough to hydrate me, basically. So they gave me like a sheet with all like the timestamps and what happened. So this is why I know like exactly what time everything happened. But at 12:27 a.m., I felt something pushing, but it was not like a super strong feeling. It was just like, I feel like the intensity more. And you could hear in my grunts that it was just more of like almost like a growling. It's funny because I never thought like, oh, I'll be growling during my contractions.
It wasn't necessarily like an animal. It was just your voice changed from to
Then I got up from the bed and my water broke, or we thought my water broke. And I went on the toilet because the toilet is like the dilation station, which helps you to dilate when you sit on it. And I was like sitting facing back, you know, like the opposite, because it just helps with like gravity and blah, blah, I don't know. And that was super uncomfortable. I like hated going on the toilet, but I just knew that it was pushing things forward. And at that point I was so exhausted. I was like, I just want this baby out. So that's when I went back into the pool, and that's when I asked Micah if we were the next day, because I just truly did not know what time it was. And he did say yes, and that was a little discouraging because I didn't feel like I was close to pushing the baby out, but we were already like so many hours in. But it was 1:30 a.m. at that point. Then I went out of the pool again. There's a lot of in and out of the pool. I went back on the bed and she checked me again, and I was finally at a 10 centimeters. So she did tell me like, you're at a 10. And I just knew like, oh my gosh, I could be pushing the baby in like 20 minutes. Or it could take another 2 hours. And I said that to her, and she like just kind of laughed, because I think she knew that it was gonna take a while, because he was pretty high up in there. Like I was at a 10, but he was not like down, you know? So I had a lot of work to do still. So that was at 2:35 a.m. that she checked me. And I was really waiting for that like instinct to push, because that's what I've heard a lot of the time, is that you'll just know, you'll just have that feeling like to push, like your uterus is gonna push for you. And I felt it a little bit, but I definitely didn't feel it like 100%. So I was like kind of pushing, kind of not pushing, and then let me do that for a while. But then at one point, my midwife was like, you need to start like actively pushing, because it was just taking way too long. And at 3:38 a.m., the other midwife came, and it could give relief a little bit to my first midwife, because she was just back to back from like other deliveries. So she went and took a nap, and I was like, oh my gosh, if she's taking a nap right now, that means I'm not gonna give birth within the next like couple hours, because she needs to be there. So that was discouraging for me, because I was like, they know there's still a lot of labor to happen. So that was a little discouraging, because at that point, pain levels were 100 out of 10. Every time I would like stand up to like go walk to the toilet or anything, I had to have like my doula in front of me and Micah in the back to do like the hip squeeze. And I was like leaning over my doula. I felt like I was gonna push the baby out in the hallway, because it was so intense.
It was very intense.
Yeah, it was just like, it was just so hard to take even just one little step.
Yeah.
Like I went back on the toilet to push basically, and my midwife came and gave me like a little stool. It was like this big of a stool, and she was like, put one of your foot on that stool to help, I don't know, help position the baby properly. And I just physically couldn't even lift up my foot this much, because it was so painful. And Micah was like there right behind me, and he was like, Steph, just put your foot on the stool. And I was like, I can't. I physically cannot.
I wasn't about to make you do it, but I tried to encourage you to be able to do it because I mean, it was that much.
So yeah, they suggested to go on this like little labor stool kind of thing, which is like a stool that you sit on, but there's like a hole so you can like give birth. So I labored on that for probably an hour, and I was actively pushing the whole time, and they were telling me to like push, take a small breath, push, take a small breath during the contractions. And his head would like come down and go up, come down and go up. And you can imagine how exhausted I was and all of that. Micah was exhausted. I could see in his face because he was like pushing on my hips the entire time for 21 hours. And it's just an exhausting experience. And so because he was so close to coming down, but he was not like coming out, they suggested to do, I don't know how you say this in English, but it's like a directed push. So basically I went on my back, which was the worst position for me because of my back labor, because I felt all of my contractions in my lower back. But I had to go on my back, and they would put their fingers inside of me to create more space to help the baby come down basically. And so I accepted that because I was like, anything to get this baby out. At this point I was thinking like, I want an epidural, I want a C-section, I want this and that. I just truly felt like he was never gonna come out. That's how I felt. Like I felt like this was gonna be my life, just trying to push this baby out.
For eternity.
So I pushed like that for 50 minutes. They told me to like grab my legs to like push up, you know, like this. It helped me push harder, I guess. So that's what I did. And this was like the most encouraging thing I've ever heard in my life. But I remember my doula just being like, whoa. Every time I would push, she would say that. And for me, that was like,
she sees him.
Like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And then I knew there was the ring of fire, which is basically when the head comes out. It's like the biggest part, so it stretches out, you know? So it hurts and it stings. And I felt it, and I just knew like, oh my gosh, his head is coming out right now, which was the biggest relief ever. So when I felt the ring of fire, for me it was like celebration almost. In my head, I didn't like show it, but for me it was not painful at all. I wanted to feel that ring of fire because I just knew that meant that the head was out. Like that's all I wanted. And so his head came out, and like I saw that.
I saw it, but I mean, it was very evident that she was in a lot of pain. So
yeah,
I was kind of in shock at that point. So I was just trying to give as much support to Steph as I could. The midwives had asked me if I wanted to catch him, which we had talked about before, maybe, but I was like, no, I can't do it. Like maybe on the second child, but right now this is too much. I have to focus on Steph.
Yeah, so when the head came out, she also asked me, the head is out, do you want to touch him? And like the thought of moving my hand from here to there was way too much for me. I can't like just get him out of me basically. So I pushed, I think 4 more times or something, I don't know, and he came out. It was the biggest relief ever because it was 21 hours of labor, but I pushed for like 5 hours. I was just so exhausted, and they put him on me, and I was like in shock. We were both kind of in shock. And all I could think of was, oh, it's over, he's not in me anymore. But then he wasn't crying at all, but I was so out of it that I didn't even like fully realize that he was not crying. And so they actually needed to help him a little bit. They brought a little table next to him and this little like pump thing.
Aspirator?
Yeah, to help him like breathe. But once they put that on him, they didn't pump it, and he started crying. So that took a couple minutes altogether. And I was not like really worried because I didn't feel like the midwives were really worried. They were just like working fast. Like they keep their demeanor very calm and soothing.
His color when he came out, it was just dark purple. So I was a little bit concerned, and watching the whole thing happen right next to me. But it was pretty wild experience because within a matter of 15 to 20 seconds, I saw his skin just change color from dark purple to what it is now.
And I think that's when I was like, oh, my baby. So it kind of took a couple minutes. And after talking to multiple of my friends, they say that they had the same experience too. I just didn't know. So let me know if it happened to you or how you experienced like the first contact with your baby, because I definitely did not think it was gonna go like that. But I had like a couple questions that people have asked me that I wanted to answer. One of the questions was, what was the hardest part of giving birth? And definitely the hardest part for me was dealing with the contractions, which is obvious. You can't fully prepare for the pain of it, but I had some tools to help me cope with it. Like I said, with the breathing and like counting the contractions and stuff like that, the pressure points. But it's just like the actual pressure and pain of like a full-blown contraction in active labor is truly like nothing I've ever experienced before. Another question I had was, would you do a home birth again? And the answer is yes. I would like to give birth at home every single time if it's possible. There's obviously sometimes that it's not possible, but I really valued giving birth at home because you're in your own environment. I knew exactly who was going to be there and no one else would be coming in my house. Maybe that does happen at the hospital, but I know a lot of the times there's like the shift change and then you change nurse, or you've never met the nurse or you've never met the doctor before. And for me, I just really wanted to know who was going to be there, and I wanted to make sure that they knew me. And with my main midwife, I had a relationship with her since I was 15 weeks pregnant. And then obviously Micah really knows me. And then my doula is a childhood friend. So I really had like people around me that knew me, that would support me, and no extra people, which was very important for me. So after giving birth, they let us have our time with baby Ezra. And we did like skin to skin with him. I breastfed him for the first time, which is like, it's just magical. I'm able to feed my baby right when he comes out of the womb. It's just like crazy. And I birthed the placenta like 15 minutes later. And that is such a relief. Oh my goodness. And it didn't hurt when he came out or anything. And I left him attached to the placenta for, I think it was over an hour. So they just put the placenta in a bowl next to me, so all the extra like blood and stem cells can go in him. So Micah cut the cord.
There's not much to say about it, but it was a rubbery thing to cut.
I tore to the 2nd degree, which, you know, it's not comfortable, but it's not like super bad. It is what it is. I would have preferred not to tear, obviously, but I had to get some stitches. And so I just like gave Ezra to Micah, and he did skin to skin, and he was like on the bed, like at the top. I was
on the top of the bed, and Steph was on this side of the bed, and I just passed out.
Yeah, he just fell asleep.
So Ezra and I both just fell asleep immediately.
Yeah, it was really sweet because Ezra was like crying, but then when he went on Micah, he just like chilled. He was just like, okay, I can sleep now. Then the midwives, they stay for like a couple hours after you give birth just to make sure that the mom is doing well, that there's no like extra bleeding, make sure that you go to the bathroom and you take a shower because you're pretty disgusting, I will say, after giving birth. But they like clean the entire house. When everyone's like clean and rested, they make sure that the baby is okay. They take his measurements, they take his weight, which he was 7 pounds 13 ounces, which is average, I think. Yeah. Then everyone leaves, and then you're in your house.
There's no drive home from the hospital. It's just you're kind of left in your home with an extra person.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's pretty much our birth story. To wrap it all up, I think my birth was really intense, but I don't think I had like an abnormally intense birth. Like, I think it's just how birthing a child is. But now I feel like I can do this again, and I know that the second, third, and all that is probably, there's some good chances that will be easier than the first one.
Would you say that you're traumatized?
No, I'm not traumatized. I don't think it was traumatizing at all. When I think about it now, I'm like super grateful for the birth that I had. There was no major complications. It was just long and intense, and that does happen. I don't want to re-experience that kind of long labor, but yeah, I would do it again. So yeah, I hope that this kind of encouraged you, if you're wanting to have a home birth, to really pursue that. I think just wherever you want to give birth is really where you should give birth, because that's where you'll feel more comfortable. And I hope it didn't scare you too much, but also like you can do it. Truly, if I did it, like anyone can do it. We're just really thankful for this little baby and for our birthing experience. Thank you for watching our video. We hope you liked our birth story. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to share about your birth story, please write them in the comments. We would love to have conversations with you guys. If you want to follow our journey, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and see what's next for us.
We'll see you soon.